Dr. Emma Sullivan wiped the red dust from her scanner's display, squinting at the readings through her helmet's visor. The quantum resonance patterns made no sense. They suggested a massive void beneath the Martian surface, but one that somehow blocked all standard sensing equipment. She'd been studying the Valles Marineris for 3 years and never seen anything like it. "Base, are you getting these readings?" she asked, adjusting her scanner's frequency. The device was her own design, built to detect quantum fluctuations that might indicate ancient microbial life. Instead, it was showing something far more interesting. "Confirmed, Doctor." Captain Michael Reed's voice crackled through her comm. "Whatever you found, it's big. Sending support team your way." Emma didn't wait. She'd fought too hard for this position to let protocol slow her down now. The scanner led her to what appeared to be a solid rock face, but the readings suggested otherwise. She pressed her gloved hand against the surface, and to her amazement, it passed right through. "Holy hell," she whispered, pulling her hand back. "It's some kind of holographic barrier." The support team was still 10 minutes out when she made her decision. Emma took a deep breath and stepped through the illusion. The rock face rippled like water around her, and she found herself in a chamber that shouldn't exist. Smooth, metallic walls rose 3 stories high, covered in flowing scripts she'd never seen before. But it was the center of the room that drew her attention. A crystal pillar pulsed with internal light, responding to her presence. "Base, are you recording this?" she asked, approaching the pillar. Static was her only answer. The chamber was blocking communications. The crystal flared brighter as she neared it, and suddenly the air around her filled with holographic displays. She saw stars, galaxies, and worlds she'd never imagined. And then she saw them die. A massive fleet appeared in the recordings, ships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. At their center was a vessel that seemed to bend space around it, and within that ship sat a being on a throne of living metal. The images shifted, showing planet after planet falling to this force. But it wasn't the ships that conquered them. As the fleet approached each world, the native species simply stopped. Their eyes would glaze over, their bodies would stiffen, and then they would kneel in perfect unison. The recording zoomed in on the throne, and Emma felt her blood run cold. The being that sat there was like nothing in Earth's scientific records. Its body was a symphony of sharp angles and impossible geometries, wrapped in what looked like living crystal. But its eyes held the weight of millennia. Text began to flow across the images, and to her shock, it was translating itself into English as she watched. She read about King Thorax the Infinite, who had ruled the eternal dominion for 10,000 years, about the quantum psychic technology that let him enslave entire species with a thought, about the countless civilizations that had fallen to his perfect empire. The final message made her heart stop. They are coming. They cannot be stopped. They cannot be reasoned with. They will not show mercy. That's when her scanner started screaming. Something massive had just entered the solar system. No, not something. Thousands of somethings. Emma ran for the chamber's exit, her mind racing. The support team met her just as she emerged, but she pushed past them toward the surface vehicle. "Get me base command now," she shouted. "Wake everyone up. Send word to Earth." "Dr. Sullivan, what's wrong?" one of the team asked. She turned to them, her face pale behind her visor. "Everything we know is about to change. An empire is coming. One that's conquered thousands of worlds. And we're next on their list." As if to confirm her words, the Martian sky lit up with new stars. The first ships of the Eternal Dominion entering visual range. Humanity's last normal day had just ended, and the fight for their very existence was about to begin. The sky above New York had turned to metal. Dr. Emma Sullivan stood among a crowd of government officials and military leaders at the United Nations, watching through the reinforced windows as the Eternal Dominion ships blotted out the sun. Each vessel was a city in the sky, their hulls gleaming with patterns that hurt the eyes to look at directly. "Those crystalline structures they're deploying," she said, pointing to the massive formations taking shape around Earth's orbit. "They match the technology I found in the Mars chamber." General Sarah Henderson lowered her binoculars. "How long until they're operational?" "Based on the data from Mars." Emma checked her tablet. "Minutes. Maybe less." The room fell silent as the largest ship yet emerged from the cloud cover. Unlike the others, this one seemed to bend light around it, creating a corona of impossible colors. King Thorax's personal vessel, just as the ancient warning had shown. "All units, stand by." General Henderson ordered into her command link. "Weapons free, but hold 4." The pain hit without warning. Emma felt it like ice being driven through her skull, a presence trying to reshape her thoughts. Around her, people grabbed their heads, some falling to their knees. But something was different from the historical records she'd studied. The pain, it was passing. Through watering eyes, she watched the massive view screens showing scenes from around the world. Millions had felt the same attack, but everywhere, people were standing back up. Confused, scared, but still themselves. The air itself seemed to vibrate, as a voice filled every human mind. Impossible. A hologram materialized in the center of the chamber, and Emma found herself face to face with the being from the Mars records. King Thorax towered 3 meters tall, his form a collection of crystalline angles that seemed to shift and flow. But his eyes, those ancient, terrible eyes, were fixed on her with an intensity that made her step back. "You." His voice was like breaking glass. "You found the warning." Emma forced herself to stand straight. "We did, and it seems they were right about everything. Except one detail." The king's form flickered with what might have been rage. "Your minds. They resist. 10,000 years of perfect conquest, and you resist." "That's not all we'll do," General Henderson said, stepping forward despite the pain still evident on her face. "You should know that Earth doesn't take kindly to invasion attempts." The alien monarch's laughter filled the room like static. "You think you can fight? You think your primitive weapons can stand against technology that has conquered galaxies? Your resistance is a novelty, nothing more." The hologram expanded, showing scenes of past conquests. Worlds burning, species kneeling, civilizations far more advanced than Earth falling before the Dominion's might. But Emma noticed something in the king's tone. An emotion she hadn't expected to hear from such a being. Uncertainty. "You're right," Emma said, drawing the king's attention back to her. "We can't match your technology. We can't match your numbers. But we can do something none of your other conquests could. We can choose. And we choose to fight." The room's lights flickered as King Thorax's form seemed to grow larger. "Then you choose extinction. I will make an example of your world. When I am done, the galaxy will remember Earth only as the place where resistance proved futile." The hologram vanished, and seconds later, the first explosions lit up the sky. The Dominion's ships had opened fire on every major city simultaneously. "All units, engage," General Henderson shouted. "Get our people underground." As chaos erupted around her, Emma was already running calculations in her head. "General, the Mars facility. I need to get back there. If their psychic technology works on quantum principles, and we're naturally resistant." The general nodded, understanding. "You'll have everything you need. Just find us a way to fight back." Through the windows, Earth's first response ships were rising to meet the Dominion's fleet. The battle for humanity's survival had begun, and their only advantage was something the king had never encountered in 10,000 years of conquest: the human ability to choose their own fate. Colonel Jake Martinez watched the Dominion fleet emerge from hyperspace, their ships casting long shadows across the Martian surface. From his command post inside Phobos Station, the enemy vessels looked like a steel storm rolling toward them. He'd commanded space forces for 15 years, but nothing had prepared him for this. Status report on the civilian evacuation, he called out, eyes fixed on the tactical display. Lieutenant Sarah Hayes responded from her station. Last transport clearing Mars orbit now, sir. Dr. Sullivan's team is secure in the underground facility. Good. Martins touched the display, zooming in on the approaching forces, because here they come. All units, execute Battle Plan Delta. What the colonel called a battle plan was really more of a desperate gambit. They had converted every mining ship, cargo hauler, and research vessel into makeshift warships. Each one was loaded with mining explosives, industrial lasers, and whatever weapons Earth could spare. The Dominion's first wave moved in perfect formation, their ships arranging themselves in geometric patterns that had probably won them countless battles. Martins allowed himself a grim smile. Perfect formations were about to meet perfect chaos. Launch the Dust Storm Protocol, he ordered. Hundreds of modified mining charges detonated across Mars' surface, sending massive clouds of red dust into the thin atmosphere. The Dominion's formations faltered as their sensors struggled to penetrate the artificial storm. Now, all ships, execute random attack patterns. The converted Earth fleet burst from hidden positions around Mars' moons, using the natural gravity wells as slingshots to achieve impossible attack angles. Mining lasers, originally designed to cut through asteroid rock, sliced through the surprised Dominion ships. Sir, Hayes called out, their combat computers are trying to predict our movement patterns. Martinez nodded. Then let's give them something they can't predict. Release the gaming squadron. A smile crossed Hayes' face as she transmitted the order. They'd given control of 20 ships to Earth's top video game players, reasoning that their unorthodox tactics would confound the enemy's ancient battle algorithms. The results were immediate and devastating. The gamers' ships pulled maneuvers that no military commander would ever consider, weaving between enemy vessels like they were running an obstacle course. One ship performed a move straight out of Galactic Racers, using a disabled Dominion cruiser as a ramp to launch itself into a perfect attack position. Their formations are breaking down, Hayes reported. They're trying to adapt, but their systems can't handle the randomness of our attack patterns. The victory was short-lived. A massive energy signature appeared at the edge of the battle. King Thorax's personal fleet had arrived. All ships fall back to secondary positions, Martins ordered. Prepare for. An explosion rocked Phobos Station. Warning lights flashed as the entire command center shifted. Direct hit on lower levels. Hayes shouted over the alarms. They're targeting the station. Martinez grabbed the command console as another hit shook the structure. Get me Dr. Sullivan. The scientist's face appeared on his screen, her underground lab illuminated by emergency lighting. Colonel, we need more time. We're close to understanding their tech. But how long? He cut in, watching as more enemy ships entered the battle. 2 hours, maybe 3. Martinez looked at the tactical display, then at his crew. They all knew what staying meant. They all knew the odds. And they all nodded. You'll have your time, Doctor. Martinez out. He straightened his uniform. Lieutenant Hayes, send Emergency Protocol 7 to all ships. We're going to show these perfect soldiers what human improvisation looks like. As Phobos Station shuddered under another hit, Martins watched his outnumbered fleet move into position. They couldn't win this battle, not in traditional terms, but they could make it so costly, so chaotic, that even an empire's perfect war machine would remember Mars as the place where their invincible fleet first learned to fear human ingenuity. Dr. Emma Sullivan's fingers flew across the holographic display as another explosion rocked the underground facility. The battle above had been raging for hours, but she forced herself to focus on the data streaming across her screen. "Dr. Bradley," she called out, "I need those quantum readings." Marcus Bradley looked up from his own station, his dark eyes rimmed with exhaustion. 3 days without sleep had left him running on nothing but coffee and determination. "Just finished the last scan. You're not going to believe this." He transferred the data to her display, and Emma's eyes widened. The neural patterns from their test subjects, humans who had resisted the Dominion's control, showed something extraordinary. "Look at these thought patterns," she said, highlighting a section of the display. "They're completely chaotic, random, unpredictable." "Exactly," Marcus replied, moving to her station. "And when I compared them to the Dominion's control signal," he overlaid the two patterns. They were complete opposites, one perfect and ordered, the other wild and irregular. Emma felt her heart race. Their entire empire is built on perfect order. Their ships, their tactics, their control technology. It all operates on absolute precision. But human minds are anything but precise, Marcus finished. "We're too random, too chaotic. Our thoughts don't follow predictable patterns. That's why their control failed." Another explosion shook the facility, closer this time. Emergency lights flashed as dust fell from the ceiling. "Dr. Sullivan," a voice called over the intercom. "Colonel Martinez reports they can't hold much longer. The Dominion is breaking through their last defense line." Emma grabbed the back of her chair, her mind racing. "Marcus, what if we could use this? Turn our chaos into a weapon." He was already moving to another console. "If we could generate a quantum field that mimics human neural patterns," his fingers danced across the controls, "we could disrupt their control signal completely." "Not just disrupt it," Emma said, the idea taking shape. "We could break it, free their enslaved species." The facility shook again, and warning alarms began to blare. "Breach in Section 7. The intercom crackled. "Enemy forces have entered the facility." Marcus looked at their work, then at the door. "We need more time." "No," Emma said, making a decision. "We need a test subject." She grabbed a portable scanner and headed for the door. "Emma, wait," Marcus called after her. "You can't. Those soldiers they're sending in, they're not Dominion warriors. They're slaves from conquered worlds. If our theory is right, we can free them." She ran through the corridors, following the sound of combat. At an intersection, she found what she was looking for: a squad of alien soldiers, their eyes glazed with the telltale sign of Dominion control. Emma activated the modified scanner, setting it to generate the chaotic field they'd discovered. The effect was immediate. The leading soldier staggered, his crystalline armor flickering. Then his eyes cleared, really seeing his surroundings for the first time in what might have been centuries. "It works," she breathed, then keyed her comm. "Marcus, get everything ready. I'm bringing test subjects." 20 minutes later, the freed soldiers were hooked up to the lab's equipment. Their leader, a being named Kex, explained how the control worked through their neural implants. 10,000 years, he said, his translator converting his clicks into English. "Our people have been slaves for 10,000 years, and you broke their control with chaos." Emma nodded, already working to refine the disruption field. Sometimes, the most powerful weapon against perfect order is a little randomness. "Marcus, look at these readings. If we can amplify this signal through Earth's satellite network, we could free everyone." He finished, his exhaustion forgotten in the excitement of discovery. Every enslaved species in the Dominion. As they worked, a message came through from the surface. The Dominion fleet was pulling back, confused by the loss of their boarding parties. They'd won this battle, but Emma knew it was only the beginning. How long until the field is ready for full deployment? she asked. Marcus checked the calculations. A few days to modify the satellite network. But Emma, when we do this, when we free everyone at once. I know, she said, looking at their new alien allies. We'll have given King Thorax something he's never faced before. An enemy as big as his empire. Engineer Hannah Roberts stood in the central hub of New Atlanta, a mile beneath the Georgia bedrock. The massive cavern stretched for miles in every direction, its walls lined with hydroponic gardens and living quarters. Above her, advanced light panels simulated a perfect spring day, while the distant sound of children playing echoed through the space. 6 weeks, she muttered, checking the construction updates on her tablet. 6 weeks to move 10 million people underground. Her assistant, Mike Chen, pulled up a holographic map of the underground network. We've got similar facilities operating under every major city now. The deep-sea habitats off the coast are running at full capacity too. Another rumble shook the cavern as the Dominion's bombs continued to fall on the surface. They'd been trying to break through for days, but the reinforced bedrock, combined with advanced shield technology reverse-engineered from captured Dominion ships, held strong. Status report from Hydroponic Section 8. A voice called over the comm. We're seeing a 30% increase in crop yields using the modified alien growth accelerators. Hannah smiled. That had been her team's idea. Adapting captured Dominion technology to enhance Earth's underground food production. The enemy's own tools turned against them in ways they'd never imagined. Ms. Roberts, a young engineer, ran up, out of breath. We've got movement in Tunnel Complex C. The sensors show multiple Dominion mining vehicles attempting to breach the outer shell. She was already moving. Alert Defense Team 3. And get me a direct line to the resistance cell in Old Atlanta. The underground command center was a hive of activity. Screens showed similar scenes playing out across the globe. Dominion forces trying to dig their way into humanity's subterranean network, only to find themselves caught in elaborate traps. Mining vehicles are almost through the first layer, someone reported. Hannah keyed her comm. All units in position. Ready and waiting. Came the response from Captain Lisa Wong's resistance team. They'd been practicing this defense for weeks. The wall burst inward as the Dominion's machines finally broke through. Their troops poured in, weapons ready, and found an empty tunnel. Now, Hannah ordered. The trap was beautiful in its simplicity. Electromagnetic pulses disabled their equipment. Hidden panels in the walls opened, spraying the invaders with a special compound her team had developed, one that reacted with their crystal-based technology, turning their advanced armor into dead weight. Within minutes, the enemy force was neutralized, their equipment added to Earth's growing collection of repurposed alien tech. Search the vehicles, Hannah instructed the recovery teams. Anything we can use, take it. Anything we can't, study it until we can. Her tablet chimed with an urgent message from the surface scouts. King Thorax was redirecting more forces to Earth, pulling them from other conquered worlds. His obsession with breaking humanity's resistance was creating opportunities throughout his empire. Ma'am, Mike called out, Dr. Sullivan's team is requesting additional power for their satellite modification project. They say they're close to a breakthrough. Hannah looked at the resource distribution charts, then at the growing underground city around her. They'd built all this in 6 weeks, turning humanity into a species that could thrive beneath the Earth's surface. If Sullivan's team needed power, they'd find a way to provide it. Divert power from secondary systems, she ordered. Keep the shields at full strength, but everything else is negotiable. As she watched another group of surface refugees being processed into their new underground home, Hannah felt a fierce pride. The Dominion had expected to break humanity's spirit by driving them underground. Instead, they'd adapted, building new cities, growing stronger, learning to turn every defeat into an opportunity. Let them keep bombing the surface, she said, more to herself than anyone else. Down here, we're not just surviving. We're getting ready to take back our world. Dr. Marcus Bradley's hands shook as he made the final adjustments to the quantum transmission array. 3 months of work had led to this moment. The entire global satellite network had been modified according to their specifications, each unit now carrying a piece of their chaotic liberation signal. Final systems check complete. Emma called out from her station. The underground laboratory had grown into a massive control center, staffed by both human scientists and freed alien allies. All satellites are in position. Kex, their first freed alien soldier, stood at a monitor displaying the neural pattern analysis. The signal matches the frequency of the control implants. When this hits, every enslaved being in range will feel it. Marcus looked at the main screen, where a map showed their initial target zone, Earth's moon. Thousands of enslaved workers had been forced to build Dominion bases there, making it the perfect testing ground for their full-scale liberation plan. Launch protocol is ready, Lieutenant Hayes announced from her communication station. Colonel Martinez has attack groups standing by to support any freed personnel. Emma took a deep breath. Send the signal. Marcus activated the array. The laboratory hummed as power surged through the modified systems. On the monitors, they watched the chaotic quantum wave wash over the lunar surface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the communications channel exploded with activity. Multiple contacts. Hayes called out, "We're getting signals from the lunar bases. They're requesting help. They're free." The screen showed scenes of chaos as thousands of alien workers broke free from Dominion control. The overseers, caught completely by surprise, were quickly overwhelmed by their former slaves. "It's working better than we calculated," Emma said, reviewing the data. "The liberation effect is cascading through their neural networks. We can push this further." Marcus was already adjusting the signal strength, expanding broadcast range to cover the entire Earth orbit. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Dominion ships began breaking formation as their enslaved crews regained their free will. Some vessels turned on their controllers, while others made immediate contact with Earth forces to offer surrender and support. "We're getting reports from the Jupiter outposts," Hayes announced. "The signal is carrying through their communication network. More ships are breaking free." King Thorax's response was swift and furious. His personal fleet launched a massive attack on the satellite network, but for every satellite they destroyed, 2 more adjusted their orbits to maintain the coverage. "He's desperate," Kex observed, his translator struggling to convey his excitement. For the first time in 10,000 years, the perfect king is losing control. Emma rushed to another console as new data poured in. The signal, it's being amplified by their own communication network. Their need for perfect coordination is working against them. Marcus saw it too. The Dominion's vast information network, built to maintain absolute control over their slaves, was now becoming a highway for liberation. Their signal was spreading through the Empire's own systems, jumping from sector to sector. "We're getting signals from other star systems," Hayes reported, her voice filled with awe. "Ships are breaking free throughout the local cluster. Entire worlds are rising up." The main screen filled with messages in countless alien languages, all being automatically translated. "We are free. The control is broken. 10,000 years of slavery ended." But their victory celebration was cut short as a new alert sounded. "Multiple hyperspace signatures," Hayes called out. "The king is calling in everything he has left. Hundreds of ships, all crewed by his personal guard." Marcus looked at the tactical display, watching as the largest Dominion fleet they'd ever seen materialized around Earth. These weren't slave crews that could be freed. These were true believers, fanatics loyal to their king. "Well," Emma said, Her voice steadied despite the overwhelming force gathering above them. "We've given the galaxy its freedom. Now we just have to live long enough to enjoy it." As battle alerts sounded throughout the underground networks, Marcus realized they'd started something that could never be stopped. The perfect empire was shattering, and its king was about to learn just how dangerous free will could be. Colonel Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the retrofitted battleship Freedom, watching as the largest space battle in human history unfolded around Earth. The planet's orbit had become a graveyard of broken ships and shattered dreams, both human and alien. "Status report on the combined fleet," he called out, his eyes fixed on the tactical display, where thousands of ships danced in a deadly ballet. Lieutenant Hayes' voice came through clear despite the chaos. "Freed alien vessels are forming up with our forces. We've got ships from 20 different species now fighting alongside us." The display showed their unlikely alliance. Sleek human vessels fighting alongside ancient alien warships, each using tactics their builders had never imagined. A squadron of freed mining ships turned their industrial cutting beams into devastating weapons, while Earth fighters weaved between them, drawing enemy fire. "Multiple hyperspace signatures," the sensor officer shouted. "Kane Thorax's personal guard is making another push." The space around Earth lit up as hundreds of crystal-hulled warships emerged from hyperspace. Unlike the freed slave ships, these were crewed by fanatics who'd chosen to serve the king. Their formations were perfect, their coordination flawless. "All ships, break by squadrons," Martins ordered. "Execute Battle Plan Phoenix." He'd named the strategy after the ancient Earth legend, Death and Rebirth. As the enemy fleet advanced in their perfect patterns, the Allied forces seemed to fall into disarray, ships scattering in all directions. King Thorax's voice boomed across all frequencies. "Your chaos cannot match our perfection. Every move you make has been calculated, every strategy known." Martins allowed himself a grim smile. "Now," he commanded. The scattered Allied ships suddenly changed course. Each random movement had been carefully planned, creating a web that now closed around the enemy fleet. Freed mining ships activated their gravity generators, creating overlapping fields that disrupted the Dominion's perfect formation. "They're adapting," Hayes warned. "Their combat computers err." "Switch to secondary protocols," Martins cut in. "Give control to the gaming squadron." Across the battlefield, 20 key ships transferred control to Earth's top gaming champions. Their moves were pure chaos, tactics pulled from video games, sports plays, and pure imagination. The Dominion's combat computers, built to counter military strategies, found themselves unable to predict ships moving like race cars or following the attack patterns of fantasy warriors. The perfect formation began to break apart. Ships collided as their calculated responses failed against the unpredictable assault. Yet still they pressed forward, driven by their king's will. "Sir," Hayes called out, "the enemy fleet is still pushing toward the satellite network. If they destroy it, all the freed worlds return to slavery." Martins finished. He keyed his command channel. "This is Colonel Martinez to all ships. The line must hold here. Earth has given the galaxy its freedom. Now we fight to keep it." The response was immediate. Ships from a dozen worlds moved to protect Earth's liberation network. Species that had been slaves for thousands of years now fought with the desperate courage of the finally free. King Thorax's massive flagship emerged from the chaos, its crystalline hull glowing with power. "You have corrupted my perfect empire with your disorder," his voice thundered. "I will erase your world from existence." "Perfect is the enemy of good," Martins responded, quoting an old Earth saying. "And we're pretty damn good at what we do." "All ships, execute final attack pattern. Show them why chaos always beats order." The Allied fleet moved as one, not in perfect formation, but in a fluid, adaptive dance that the Dominion's computers couldn't predict. Former slaves fought beside their liberators, each ship adding its own random element to the battle's equation. As the two fleets clashed in their final confrontation, Martinez watched his tactical display light up with explosions. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting an enemy with 10,000 years of victory behind them. But they had something the Dominion could never understand: the beautiful chaos of freedom and the strength that comes from choosing your own path. The perfect empire was about to learn that some things can't be calculated, controlled, or conquered. The Great Hall of the United Nations had been rebuilt with a crystal dome, a fitting mix of human and alien architecture. Dr. Emma Sullivan stood at the podium, looking out over an audience that included representatives from over 1,000 formerly enslaved species. The massive holographic displays behind her showed the final moments of the battle that had changed everything. King Thorax's flagship, once the symbol of perfect order, erupting in a cascade of light as the combined fleet's attack finally broke through its defenses. 1 month ago, Emma began, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. We witnessed the end of the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known. Not through superior force, but through the power of freedom and choice. In the front row, Colonel Martinez sat with his dress uniform adorned with new medals, while beside him, Hannah Roberts studied the building's innovative design. Dr. Marcus Bradley worked at a console, coordinating the massive data transfer they were about to begin. The Eternal Dominion fell not because we were stronger, Emma continued, but because they never understood the true nature of power. They sought perfection through control, while we found strength in chaos and creativity. The screen shifted to show the neural pattern data that had started it all. Our gift to the galaxy wasn't just liberation. It was the proof that diversity, randomness, and free will are not weaknesses to be overcome, but strengths to be embraced. Kex, now the ambassador of his free people, clicked in agreement. Around the hall, other former slaves nodded or gestured in their own ways. They had all felt the truth of her words during their long imprisonment. Today, we share everything, Emma announced. Our research, our technology, our understanding of both the control signal and its countermeasure. We do this not to create a new empire, but to ensure no power can ever enslave the galaxy again. Marcus activated the data transfer. Across the galaxy, thousands of worlds received the complete archives of human science, culture, and knowledge, freely given. In return, the freed species shared their own histories and technologies, creating the largest exchange of information in known history. But our greatest gift, Emma said, her voice softening, was something we never knew we had until we needed it most: the beautiful unpredictability of the human spirit. The screen showed scenes from the battle: gaming squadron ships pulling impossible maneuvers, underground cities rising from the Earth's depths, scientists and soldiers working together to turn an empire's strength into its greatest weakness. We stand here today not as conquerors, but as equals. Earth will serve as the heart of a new galactic coalition, not through control or dominance, but through cooperation and free will. Hannah stepped forward then, presenting the architectural plans for the coalition's new headquarters, a structure that would incorporate elements from every member species, rising from the rebuilt streets of New York. Colonel Martinez joined her, bringing the battle plans that would become the foundation of a new defense force, one dedicated to protecting freedom rather than enforcing order. Let the galaxy remember this day, Emma concluded, not as the end of an empire, but as the beginning of something far greater, a future where every species is free to chart its own course among the stars. The hall erupted in a cacophony of cheers, clicks, whistles, and other expressions of joy from 1,000 different species. Above them, through the crystal dome, the stars shone down on a galaxy forever changed. As Emma stepped back from the podium, she caught sight of a small display showing Earth from orbit. The scars of battle were still visible, but already the combined knowledge and technology of 1,000 worlds was helping to heal them. They had done the impossible, defeated a perfect empire with imperfect methods, freed countless worlds with the power of chaos and choice. And now, in the beautiful disorder of freedom, the galaxy would write its own story, one random, unpredictable chapter at a time.